We have the return of the King of Freezing back row. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that Denko Rekka button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. I think that this has been one of my favorite tech choices to report on because this card just pretty much came out of not really. This has been a card that looms in the shadow of every format, and for whatever reason, it only took until Dracotail started to show up that Denko Sekka started to kind of return back into the format as this nice little, card that freezes up back row. Now, obviously, why is this so important? Well, much like most of us, if you're playing into Dracotail and they've got 4 back rows set, they have the monster in hand that, Confuse that got Gimme Ghoul on the field too. It kind of turns into a little bit of a shit show. Sometimes they might not have the fine mana, but realistically, slamming a Denko Sekka on the field literally means, oh shit, I gotta do something about this. Or if that Denko sticks and all these back row are now suddenly invalidated, there's a problem here. You literally cannot functionally play the game, and that's where our problem herein lies. The minute that these back row become invalidated is great. Now, obviously, it's not a terrible game over matchup for it, but my friend who did play this and a few other people, he told me the worst time that he had over the weekend was getting Solemn Warning on the summoning of the Denko. And he was like, well, sometimes your opponent just has the Denko, and there's not really much that you can do to try to counterplay it. I mean, that is entirely true. Your opponent just happened to have the card that inadvertently ruined your game plan. It ends up happening, and it's not the worst thing in the world. Secreterion Dragon. Holy crap. This card, we are finally starting to see why so many players were, afraid of Dracotail kind of taking off. Now, this thing is a dragon plus a spellcaster. Not only is that a super poly target, it itself is the death of the mirror match. Now, it loses 100 attack for each of your banished cards, which is understandable. It's 3k, it's going to start to shrink a little bit. And then, while you control this Fusion Summon card, your opponent cannot activate the effects of Special Summon Dragon or Spellcaster monsters that they control. That means no Artholion, no of the Gormel. You don't have to worry about any of that BS because, congratulations, you've effectively paralyzed them from advancing their game plan, and that's kind of crazy. And then, obviously, you can target a dragon or a spellcast, or a dragon and a spellcaster, grave or special summon one, place the other on the bottom of the deck. We don't really care about that too much. Super poly target, a card that you can make in the mirror match, and then your opponent literally cannot play the game. And I love the fact that Konami has been, throughout the years, making more cards to basically punish the mirror match. They don't necessarily want the mirror match to be a winnable thing, but I mean, look all the way back to Sirocco, where, Sirocco could just massively blow out the mirror match, and you're just like, that's crazy, dog. Why did Konami, allow this to happen? It's been their design philosophy for years. So, Secreterion Dragon has been going up in price. The reason for this is because as Dracotail has progressed its way into the meta as more of a powerhouse sort of deck, you got to see more clearly here as to why objectively this card is seeing play. Jaja, oh boy, Archlord Christia. A lot of the it's not even like Archlord Christia's fault. It's the current mentality towards the remaining you cannot special summon or your opponent cannot special summon cards that are in the game. There's been a crusade against all of them recently. And Archlord Christia just so happens to be one of the most recent victims in the spotlight because people see that, oh, hey, the stupid so-and-so is able to access this, oh, great, another floodgate that's allowing me not to play the game. All right, that's what it has been for a while now, and it has been it has been annoying. And the fact that, you know, we just had the incantation. We have Archlord Christian now, who's showing up not only in Dragon Roller, but all of these other spaces. It's been a pretty common thing to see as of late. And I'm not necessarily surprised to see yet again. But I mean, this has got to do with tech choices. Archlord Christie has been something that's been rattling around in the back of people's minds for a little while now. And the fact that, you know, suddenly it's like, oh boy, you know, Vingolf's Blessing is now suddenly allowing you a little bit easier access to this, or, you know, you need a light monster to dump down so that you can inconvenience your opponent while playing, you know, some of the other BS within the meta. Yeah, it ends up being very, very interesting. So, welcome to Archlord Christia, everybody. It's going to stick around for, I feel like, a little while, just to kind of inconvenience players. That's just how it works. I want to talk about Runick here. So, hi Border, hi Crocea, how are you guys doing? So, recently out of Australia, Runick had a comeback. The deck really just, it even shook me up for a second, because I was like, really? Like, we're playing Runick in 2025. Now, I mean, there was a little bit of time, a little while back, that you guys recall that I was like, oh, hey, you know, Runick actually might be viable right now. We might actually be seeing something for this. And it was a very, I think, short-lived burst. But somebody actually took some of the Radiant Typhoon cards and actually had a semi-successful run with that. And, you know, I like to clap for these sorts of events because it really makes you appreciate just how off of the wall some of these ideas can actually be in the game, and how, you know, at a right choice in the meta, you know, having access to an inspector border just wins you the game. Oh, look, back to the previous point here. Floodgate cards have been irritating players a lot more recently. This is another case in point. You know, you look at Border and you're like, oh boy, you know, I really love this card. It is so great, and it actually makes the game so unfun. I mean, yes, to a degree it does, but going forward, I do think that you could tip the scales a little bit. Obviously, in Genesis format, Runick is very, very strong, even though, you know, you don't have an extra monster zone to summon these things to. And that's fine, but the Runick spells themselves definitely have been working their way up on the consistency block and really showing that these cards are very, very strong. So I do fully look forward just to seeing, you know, what other ideas players are going to try out with this. And then there is the Maliss or not to Maliss. So Maliss has been gaining a lot of traction lately. And I mean, truly, it has been a lot of attraction because obviously Lancia has kind of fallen out of the format. And when Maliss sees Lancia kind of making a little bit of an exit away from the format, then yeah, I'm going to want to try considering it. There's no reason to not give it a try at that point. You know, obviously they lost Splash Mage, and, you know, you kind of got to work through some of your, you know, play lines. Also, all three of the traps are kind of returning back into play. You know, the mentality for previously where, you know, if you're playing all three traps, you're behind. No, most players have already left Maliss behind. So that means that we can start to mess around without the bias of the opinions of the so-called pro players. You know, you can kind of expand within the space now, and you can find your own success with Maliss. The deck can top a YCS. It has been doing very, very well. Now, I just came off of 9th place at Pittsburgh, man. Like, hello? If you really don't think that this is a real deck, I've got incredibly bad news for you, because it is definitely not the case. All right, Maliss is a contender. It just, maybe you can't win a YCS. I mean, it is what it is. But there are some very strong cards right now that are serving interesting stepping stone purposes, like Denko Sekka, you know, like the Secreterion Dragon for specific matchups. And, you know, they're doing very well. So please, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here in day, guys.
Patrons!
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.